All right, continuing on through my stack of stuff, I've got an article by Gabriel Augustine of Eyes Everywhere entitled The Core of the Cabal, Satan's Throne and the War for Earth. It's a very powerful article. He puts words to who this is that we are contending with. At the center of the globalist agenda lies not simply a group of elite individuals, but also a spiritual infrastructure, a throne of iniquity where satanic governance manifests through principalities, powers, and human agents. While Alex Jones and others rightly expose the outer tentacles of the system, big pharma, big tech, international banking, surveillance, war profiteering, etc., the core is where these are all coordinated. It is the concentrated will of Satan on earth working through, and then he gives a list of the concentrated will of Satan on earth working through the occult priesthoods, the elite bloodlines, interdimensional councils, financial command centers, and global governance schematics, and we'll get into a few of these. I think it's important to learn how to talk about this stuff. I know that early on when I was being red-pilled, it was so overwhelming, the information that I was getting, that it was difficult to talk about it. And I didn't really have an understanding of how it all fit together. I could just see a lot of different components to the New World Order. Everything from, fluoride in the water, to the education system being full of all sorts of anti-Christ teachings. I could see the government pushing communism everywhere. So I was able to see a lot of the military-industrial complex, big tech and surveillance starting to, I was made aware that 9/11 and you have a building that fell down looking like it was collapsed by demolition, that nothing ever touched it, the third building that fell. But when you're looking at all these events and you don't fully understand how it all fits together, this New World Order, this cabal, and you're trying to talk about it, you can sound like a crazy person. And so I think it's important to learn how to talk about this stuff. And so I like to find research articles where it's clearly articulated, who is this cabal that's running the earth? How do they operate? What does it look like? I remember my wife and I had a season when we were watching Blacklist on Netflix. And there's probably no better TV show to watch if you want to learn about how the cabal operates than Blacklist. We watched that show and it was incredibly insightful. And knowing that one of the ways that the occult practices operate is that they will seed their revelations or seed their tactics and techniques into the fabric of society through TV shows, movies. They believe that if they show you what they're doing, even if they show it to you through movies or through TV shows, and that you do nothing about it, then you've rightfully submitted to them, that they have legal authority to carry out their agenda since you're doing nothing about it. And so if you watch the TV series Blacklist on Netflix and you get a picture of how the cabal operates, it's a little bit overwhelming. So I like to study this stuff out and learn how to break it down and talk about it. And, if you can just share a little bit with people about even little aspects of it, it helps plant the seed. And then the Lord, remember, is developing everyone's understanding and everybody's theology. So it's just like evangelism. I might plant one seed and then someone else comes along and plants another seed. And then, eventually somebody gets saved. I think it's the same thing with helping people understand what's happening in the world around us in terms of the New World Order and the one world government that Satan is trying to bring about on the earth. So anyways, let's take a look at this article. It says, occult priesthood, that's one of the ways by which Satan enacts his will through this cabal. Occult priesthoods, e.g. Mystery religions, secret societies, Luciferian cults. Beneath the surface of global culture, let's talk about these occult priesthoods. Beneath the surface of global culture, politics, and media lies a hidden priesthood, a network of occult practitioners who operate in mystery religions, secret societies, and Luciferian cults. From ancient Babylon to the inner circles of today's elite institutions, these priesthoods have preserved arcane knowledge and ritual power, initiating select members into systems designed to channel demonic influence. I talked about this yesterday. If you go to the homepage of our channel, you'll see it right here. It's the theater of the elite, how the world becomes a ritual stage. Very powerful video. In fact, let me hit the play button on that for just a second. Ritual stage. All the world's a stage, says William Shakespeare. In recent weeks, a shocking convergence of global events. Donald Trump's bizarre papal meme, his open desire to be the next pope, a trade deal with Britain, the death of Pope Francis, and the rise of the first American pope, all on May 8th, has raised alarms among spiritual watchmen and geopolitical analysts alike. Is this a coincidence, or is there a deeper script being followed? Insiders and researchers suggest these events are not random at all, but they are part of an orchestrated pattern known to occult elite power structures as ritual theater, guided by ancient principles, numerology, and symbolic timing. Welcome to the theater of the elite. So there you go with that. You can take a look at that video. So, occult priesthood. Beneath the surface of the global culture, politics, and media lies a hidden priesthood, a network of occult practitioners who operate in mystery religions, secret societies, and Luciferian cults. From ancient Babylon to the inner circles of today's elite institutions, these priesthoods have preserved arcane knowledge of ritual power, initiating select members into systems designed to channel demonic influence. Organizations like Freemasonry, the Ordo Templi Orientis, and new tech-savvy iterations have acted as ideological transmission belts for Luciferian doctrine, all under the guise of enlightenment or philanthropy. Their function is priestly in the dark sense, to meditate between human rulers and the powers of darkness, establishing spiritual gateways through which principalities influence world affairs. This is not metaphor, it is liturgy, sacrifice, and invocation practiced in secret chambers at the highest levels of power. Last night I had a powerful encounter. I was in prayer, and the Lord was talking to me about somebody whose radar I've gotten onto. And the Lord was telling me, hey, you're on this person's radar, but I wasn't understanding who the Lord was talking about. And so I was going through my Rolodex. When I'm talking with the Lord, a lot of times like a little kid who's trying to understand something that God's saying or something that a parent is saying to them. I have a 3-year-old, and my 3-year-old doesn't always understand exactly what we're saying. And so it takes her a little bit to get it. And she's in that stage where every word is, what does that word mean? And then you give her the definition, and then she says, and what does that word mean? Anyways, I can be like that with the Lord, where I'm like, okay, so you're saying that there's someone whose radar I'm on, and I'm imagining, is it, the tech surveyors? Is it, do I have a CIA, FBI after me? Who is it? And as I went through my Rolodex, finally the Lord showed me, no, it's somebody who's in secret. It's somebody who you would never know about, but who has more power than names that you know. He was telling me that in all of your time in prayer, I've spent my life is I'm a missionary at a monastery, and as I spend time in prayer in that secret place, he said there are demonic priests who spend that time in that secret place. Names you'll never hear of until one day when you're in heaven and you get to see the whole story. And so even the guys like the Bill Gateses and all the different people, the P. Diddy's and the Klaus Schwabs and the Rockefellers and the Rothschild and all these names that you know, at the end of the day, I really believe that the real occult priesthood is being done in places so secret, and they're conjuring demonic powers that are making them feel some kind of a way. And anyways, so the Lord was telling me, yeah, you're on the radar of one of these people who they are aware of what you're doing in the place of prayer. And so this occult priesthood is definitely real. So occult priesthoods, elite bloodlines, let's read a little bit here. Interwoven through the corridors of power are dynastic families whose lineage is not merely political or financial, but spiritual. The elite bloodlines, such as the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, and European royals, trace their power through generations not only by wealth, but by covenantal alignment with demonic principalities. These families serve as a long-term stewards of satanic governance, bound by blood oaths, generational rituals, and strategic intermarriage designed to preserve spiritual authority. Their influence extends beyond borders, elections, or economics. They are the earthly hosts of ancient thrones. From child grooming to occult rites, these families operate as high-level administrators of the Cabal's agenda, ensuring continuity of control across centuries. Their allegiance is not to nations or peoples, but to a fallen order, an anti-kingdom whose dominion depends on secrecy, manipulation, and ritual. Now, this is an article that I'm reading. I don't have proof of all of this, but this sort of gives you a picture. And so I would just want to say that this is allegedly, because if I was a Rockefeller or a Rothschild or a European royal, I wouldn't want people writing things about me if they weren't true. And so I don't know that this stuff is true. I'm doing the research the same way that you are. The reason why you're probably looking at videos is you're wanting to find out more. You know, we all feel a little bit like Neo in the Matrix, and Morpheus is describing to Neo, saying the Matrix is all around you. You can feel it, you can taste it, you can smell it. But in order to see it, he had to be unplugged from it. And so that's what all of us are doing, right? Is we're doing the research, we're trying to find out. We're watching the world go nuts in front of our eyes. And most of us never would have imagined that we would see the things that we've seen since 2020, and the lockdowns and everything on the news, from presidents doing media appearances at a fake White House, and people who are clearly wearing makeup and masks. And it's like, is that guy even alive? Is the Pope the Pope? Is Joe Biden Joe Biden? I mean, I don't think any of us 15 years ago, or certainly not when we were kids growing up, imagined that this is what life would be like in the 2020s. And so we're just doing the research. And you got to eventually, ultimately obey the Holy Spirit. And so take this stuff with a grain of salt. If it's a seed that impacts you, praise the Lord. Can I verify that any of this stuff? Not necessarily, not the details of it. But I think when we paint a broad stroke, it helps lay a grid work for our brain, and then the Lord can fill in the details for us. Okay, so these people have interdimensional counsel. Behind the polished rhetoric of advanced civilizations and higher consciousness lies one of the most seductive deceptions of the modern age. Contact with fallen entities masquerading as ascended masters, spirit guides, or extraterrestrials. Whether through channeling, psychedelic gateways, or direct downloads in deep occult ritual, global influencers, tech elites, military contractors, New Age leaders receive counsel from beings that transcend the material plane. Now, this is stuff you can verify. A lot of these folks claim these things. In fact, if you go to YouTube and just type in using DMT to channel entities, you'll see all types of videos. Look at this. What are DMT entities? The entities that exist within psychedelics. What is a DMT trip like, and who are the entities that you meet? And I've heard Alex Jones talk about a lot of the tech people that he knows, and different people in government that talk about how government, CIA, DARPA, some of these secret programs, space programs, utilize DMT and ask people to take it, and then they monitor what they see, what they hear. So this is very common, but you can do the research on that. But these are not benevolent space brothers or evolved spirits. They are ancient rebels cast out of heaven, now rebranding themselves to a post-Christian world. Figures like Aleister Crowley, Jack Parsons, and even high-level government officials have documented contact with these intelligences, often under the guise of scientific or metaphysical progress. In truth, these encounters from a shadow Sanhedrin, a spiritual advisory board aligned with the throne of Satan, feeding instructions, technologies, and ideologies. If you go and you read the book of Enoch, you find out, or the book of Jubilees, the book of Enoch, the book of Jasher, I forget, it's been a while since I've read those, but I believe it's in the book of Enoch. It talks about how there were these, fallen ones, fallen angels that taught men how to create weapons of war. So this is not a new thing. There was fallen angels that taught men how to utilize psychedelics, even all the way back in the book of Enoch. So this is nothing new. And I think the last part of this sentence is very interesting. It says it's to accelerate global deception. So a spiritual advisory board aligned with the throne of Satan, these entities that people experience through DMT, feeding instructions, technologies, and ideologies to accelerate global deception. And that's what they were doing also in the book of Enoch. All right, financial command centers. We're going over here, the core of the Cabal. This is really part 2. If you go to the YouTube channel, part 1 of the core of the Cabal, Satan's throne and the war for earth is the first video, and it'll give you more context of this one. And we're going through just some components of the core, because if you don't know who it is that you're fighting and how they're operating, you're more likely to be deceived by them. The financial command centers. The Cabal's earthly power is upheld by financial thrones, centralized institutions that control currency, debt, and economic policy for entire nations. A good video for you to go see would be this one right here, Trump's Middle East Initiative, a sign of economic resurrection. Also, Elite's game, Theater of the Elite, How the World Becomes Ritual Stage. If you'll take a look at those videos, it'll help give greater context. We go into the money side of the Cabal. The Federal Reserve, International Monetary Fund, IMF, and Bank for International Settlements operate as the economic priesthood of the Cabal, manipulating global markets and national sovereignty under the illusion of stability and progress. These institutions are not merely managing money, they are engineering dependence, perpetuating cycles of debt slavery that bind nations and individuals alike. Every policy, every interest rate hike, every manufactured crisis serves as a deeper agenda to replace organic exchange and national autonomy with a controlled global currency grid, a digital financial cage. Behind the boardroom doors and data dashboards is a throne room, and at its center sits Mammon, enthroned not in gold, but in algorithms and compound interest. So there's a financial command center that's a part of the core of the Cabal, and we go into greater detail in those other videos. But I talked about this, that when the Israelites were in Egypt, I always used to wonder, how did they become enslaved? Because they were given Goshen. How did they end up in slavery? And then Moses had to deliver them. And when you read in the book of Jasher, it lets you know that the way that Pharaoh got the Israelites enslaved was he pulled them out of Goshen by asking them to help build cities outside of Goshen, and they began to pay them money, and they got the Israelites used to using whatever Egyptians' money was at that time, and they got the Israelites purchasing Egyptian goods and basically getting used to the good Egyptian life. And then they set up leadership above them and started pulling back the money, and slowly they began to enslave the Israelites. So there's nothing new under the sun. This is what the Cabal does, is they get nations dependent on money that's loaned to them by the Cabal, and then those nations owe interest, and then the Cabal is able to bring about world events that hurt that country's economy, and then when that country can't pay back their money, they now are owned by the people who loan the money to them. I mean, it's pretty simple. So loan people money in a way that they can't pay back, create world events so that the people can have less of an ability to pay it back, and then now you own them, they become your slaves. Global governance schematics. The architecture of global control is not chaotic. It is meticulously designed through councils, summits, and think tanks that project a benevolent image while enacting totalitarian blueprints. Organizations like the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, the Council on Foreign Relations, and the Trilateral Commission form the visible framework of what is, in essence, an emerging Tower of Babel. Disguised as humanitarian collaboration and sustainable development, these bodies craft policies that dissolve national sovereignty, rewrite human rights, and centralize power into the hands of unelected technocrats. Their speeches are laced with talk of equity and peace, but their goals are technocratic control, population management, and digital enslavement. The true aim is not cooperation, it is convergence, a single global system ruled not by the consent of the governed, but by the counsel of the damned. I had a time with the Lord where I said, Lord, why is it that we would pray against the one world government? We see it happening. We see technology getting to the place where they could easily track everybody. We know where this is headed. There will be eventually a one world government and there's nothing we can do to stop it. The Bible prophesies of this. I said, so Lord, I don't want to pray against your will. Should I be praying that this one world government come about? And he said to me, not yet. It's not in your day that it's going to come about. There's going to be a reprieve. So pray for the reprieve now. And if you go back and watch some of our past videos, I talk about a word I got. I had a visit from an angel in 2006 where he showed me a vision of America being in a 40-year revival, that this revival would be, it started with a new leadership being mantled. And we're starting to see it. We're 20 years into this revival. And the Lord had told me back then, he said, no matter what you see in the news, no matter what you see happening in the world, you just keep declaring that America is in the midst of the greatest revival it's ever seen. And I believe that that's where we're at. And part of this revival, the first stage of the revival, is that a new leadership with new mantles has been learning how to steward their mantles, and the anointing on them is so great that it started to force the enemy out into the open. Bill Johnson, a famous preacher at Bethel Church in Northern California, says that the enemy, his last resort is to show his face. He'd rather you not know that he's there. And that's been the case in America. The enemy's been here all along, but it's been since like 2016, really since Trump became president, that all of this corruption has been exposed, and all of this craziness, from lockdowns in 2020 to everything that we've seen over the last 5 years. And so I believe that this is a revival that's taking place that begins with whatever was behind the scenes causing all the bad stuff to happen has to really come forth and show its face, and then it's going to be pushed out of America. I believe that by the end of the 40 years, all of America will be saved. I believe that we will be completely out of debt. There'll be cities where if you just take people there, they'll get healed. And I've been commissioned and told by God, you just keep declaring. And this was an angel I could see with my eyes. There's a whole story behind it. But he said, keep declaring that America is in the midst of the greatest revival it's ever seen, a 40-year revival. And it won't be about church attendance. It will be about taking the entire nation. And I believe that is where we're at. So if you're finding out or hearing me talk about the global governance schematics and the New World Order, it's not because I think they're going to win in my lifetime. I think that they're going to win in the end before the Lord comes back. But it's important to see them, know what they're doing, and not fall into their traps. A lot of people that I know during 2020 listened and got the, this thing right here. Apparently you're not allowed to say it. You're not supposed to say it. I know people who died from it. I know people who, can I prove it? No, but they went to the doctor, and then next thing you know, they're sick and dying. They went to the doctor, next thing you know, myocarditis. They went to the doctor, next thing you know, they're developing Alzheimer. So many people maimed by ignorance. The Bible says my people perish for lack of knowledge. So a lot of why I'm doing these videos is really just it's my loaves and fishes that I'm giving offering to the Lord to help let as many people as I can let know from wherever I'm at in my maturity on this understanding, to help people not be deceived and maybe avoid some pain in their future.